Alexander Volkanovski proves me wrong. He is once again the featherweight champion at 36 years old. He breaks the 35 curse. Fighters at the weight class of 155 and below were combined 0-17, now 1-17 in title fights. But Alexander Volkanovski says screw that, and he beats Diego Lopes in a 5-round decision. Now, I'll be honest, I was worried for Volkanovski this entire fight. I did pick Diego Lopes to chin him by knockout, and he did knock down Volkanovski in the fight. And Volkanovski in this fight got cut and hit, I feel like, more than all of his other fights. But, you know, he had a year out of the cage. He's older now, so I can't expect him to be like Mr. Speedy like he normally is, you know. But nonetheless, if you look at the strikes, total strikes, Volkanovski outlanded him double or even almost triple. Significant strikes, he almost tripled Diego Lopes. He was 1-11 on takedowns. I will say Diego Lopes' takedown defense looked amazing in this fight, and all the cardio questions regarding Diego Lopes were answered, and Volkanovski answered all the questions, you know. People were writing him off like myself. You know, he's 36 years old, back-to-back KO losses, a year out of the cage. And even after the fight, Volkanovski was saying, man, that was hard. He knows that that was a dogfight, man. He had to pull every tool out of his tool bag to get it done. But nonetheless, Alexander Volkanovski defeats Diego Lopes by a 49-46, 49-46, and, 48-47 decision. I thought it was a 49-46. I thought it was 4-1 Volk. It was a close fight. Diego Lopes only won the round wherever he knocked down Volk, which I think was, round 2 or 3? I don't exactly remember, but Diego Lopes in the fight, man, that little chin thing he does is going to get him in trouble in future fights. I really feel like that little tick he has, kind of like Dustin Poirier pulling up his shorts, doesn't do him any favors in the fight, but he was pushing forward. He kept like saying, come on, Volk. And Volkanovski was just saying smart. And every time they got close in the pocket, it started swinging. I was like, man, Diego's going to catch him and put him on cold. And he caught him a couple times, but Volkanovski kept circling, kept cracking Diego Lopes. I was actually surprised at how hard Volkanovski was cracking Diego Lopes. And Volkanovski actually came out in this fight very aggressive. I did not expect him to come out guns blazing like he did, which I think was very smart to set the tone of the fight and let Diego Lopes say, hey, and let him know, like, hey, I'm here. Like, you're not just going to bulldoze through me like I'm an old guy, because, you know, Diego Lopes is probably looking to take the center of the octagon and dominate in the fight. But nonetheless, Diego Lopes proves he has championship cardio. Alexander Volkanovski proves that the over 35 champion thing doesn't exist, and he's the man. He comes back, he wins the featherweight belt, and I could not be happier for Alexander Volkanovski. Listen, at the end of the day, we picked these fights. I was wrong. I said that Diego Lopes would catch Volkanovski, but I did admit that Volkanovski is the more skilled mixed martial artist across the board, and I still hold that opinion. I thought that the only way Diego Lopes was going to beat Volkanovski is if he caught him with a knockout. He wasn't going to out-skill or out-technique Volk, and that was exactly true in the fight. I mean, Diego Lopes got outstruck and outworked over 5 rounds, and outside of landing that big shot, you know, he was holding his own, but he was kind of behind the whole fight. Volkanovski, a lot of people were saying he was running. I think he was fighting very smart, and I do respect his game plan for the way he came out. Listen, you got to understand, this guy's older. He's got to fight like a smart old guy. He can't be fighting like a young, hungry lion, just throwing caution to the wind, you know, because he will get chinned. And yeah, man, the Australian Unk, our favorite fighter, Alexander Volkanovski, gets it done. And what's next for Volkanovski? Put him up against Movsar. I think Alexander Volkanovski will school Movsar Evloev. Movsar is not going to be able to take down Volk, and I think that Volkanovski is going to just be able to outstrike him and outwork him over 5 rounds, and maybe even get a TKO in later rounds. But that's the next fight, Volkanovski versus him. And for Diego Lopes, maybe you do Diego versus Arnold Allen. I don't know. There's fights for Diego. You know, he only has 6 fights in the UFC, and yeah, Diego looked good, but not great, and Volkanovski looked great, because I thought that Volkanovski was going to get chinned. So, yeah, shout out to Volk. He proved me wrong. I'm happy for him. First guy to get a belt over the age of 35 in the lower weight classes. Shout out to Volkanovski. He defeats Diego Lopes. In the co-main event, Michael Chandler, as I predicted, got his ass beat down by Paddy Pimblett. Absolute beautiful beat down. I knew it was coming. Michael Chandler's not good, and he's old, man. I did not understand the narrative people were dragging that Michael Chandler was going to destroy Paddy Pimblett. People were forgetting that this guy is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. People were forgetting that this guy is nearly 39 years old, and he's older than ever. He's slower than ever. He hasn't won a fight in over 2 years. How are people so confidently picking Michael Chandler? He got his ass beat from pillar to post. I've never seen Michael Chandler take so much damage in his entire career, and I've watched his highlights. He's never been that beat up. Dude was bleeding out of his nose. He had cuts all over his face. Paddy was on his back, beating the shit out of him, threatening submissions. And yeah, he caught Paddy with a couple good clean strikes, but Paddy Pimblett came in the fight fighting very smart, fighting like a guy who has fight IQ, where we know Michael Chandler does not have high fight IQ. He has low fight IQ, and the reason that he lost this fight is just because he's old, man. Let's be real. Maybe prime Michael Chandler would have had a chance to chin Paddy, but Michael Chandler ain't that guy anymore, man. He's 39, 1-4 in his last 5. I think Michael Chandler should ride off in the peaches in Creamville. I do not think he should come back and fight. He's old, man. 39 is not a place you want to be in the lightweight division with so many young up-and-comers like Paddy Pimblett, like Arman Sarukian, like Ignacio Bahamondes. There's all these young guys, and Michael Chandler's in the Shark Tank. So if he decides to keep fighting, you already know the UFC is going to make him fight another up-and-comer. He's going to get his ass beat again. But I did not agree with the notion all week that people were saying that Paddy Pimblett was overrated. He sucks. He gets hit on the feet. He's going to get knocked out. Michael Chandler's going to knock him out. Listen, first of all, Michael Chandler has overrated power. Who's the last person he knocked out? The ghost of Tony Ferguson? Dan Hooker 4 years ago? It's like, come on, dude. Michael Chandler doesn't really knock people out these days. And for people to be so confident that he would be the first guy to chin Paddy at 39 years old when Paddy's never been chinned and never even beaten in the UFC, I thought was a bit of delusional. And yeah, man, I was proven right in this fight. I got the main event wrong, but I did get this fight exactly right. I thought Paddy Pimblett was going to beat the shit out of Michael Chandler. And that's literally exactly what happened. And yeah, couldn't happen to a better guy. Michael Chandler, the glove grabbing, eye poking, back of the head shot, and fence grabbing, all that good stuff. Finally comes back to haunt him now. That it is what it is. He did nut shot Paddy one time, but outside of that, Michael Chandler looks like he stayed free of cheating. I would say it was a good fight, but it wasn't. If you look at the significant strikes, 80-11, dude. Paddy Pimblett beat the brakes off of Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler turned into a wrestler in this fight because Paddy Pimblett was beating his ass on the feet. Paddy Pimblett was hitting him. I think he hit him with a brutal flying knee at one point, which rocked Michael Chandler, which actually cut him open pretty bad. And that was pretty much the beginning of the end. And yeah, man, Paddy Pimblett is going to be ranked in the top 10 in the lightweight division in 2025. A lot of people doubted him for this long. I do not think he beats pretty much any of the guys ranked ahead of Michael Chandler. Sixth, he can beat Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje, actually. I take that back. But I think he loses to Charles. I think he loses to Dustin Poirier. I think he loses to Islam, Arman, and Ilya. I think all those guys beat him. But listen, man, Paddy's no slouch on the ground. If he gets anybody to the ground, they're in danger of being getting submitted. I think he would give Charles Oliveira a run for his money on the ground. That might be a hot take, but I could see it, man. But either way, Paddy Pimblett gets it done. He TKOs Michael Chandler in round 3, and yeah, that's life-changing damage for Michael Chandler. So I think he should hang it up after that one. Shout out to Paddy Pimblett. In the feature fight, Yair Rodriguez beats the absolute unk in Patricio Pitbull, who, let's be real, he was never going to win this fight. 43 fights in his MMA career, and he's 37, nearly 38 years old, fighting a still young and hungry Yair Rodriguez. First of all, Yair Rodriguez looked amazing. He was in the best shape of his career. He looked fast. He looked light on his feet. He knocked down Pitbull at one point. He outstruck him, 70-17 significant strikes. He even got a takedown on Pitbull. Yair looked in prime form, and you already know he was going to try to weasel his way into a title fight if he won this by calling out the winner of Volkanovski Lopez for Noche. But we already know the UFC is going to do Volk versus Mavzor. If Lopez had won, I could see the UFC jumping over Mavzor again and giving Yair a title shot. But Yair needs to take a back seat. He only has one win in the last 2 years, and it's against a guy who was 37 debuting in the UFC. Patricio Pitbull, I'm going to be honest, he looked pretty bad. He looked tentative. He looked scared to engage. He looked like he was trying not to get knocked out the whole fight. I don't know, man. He fought timid. He didn't fight like a pit bull. He fought like a chihuahua. I'm going to keep it real. And yeah, Yair Rodriguez looked great, but it still looked like Yair has questionable takedown defense. That wasn't a guy that I was looking at and I was like, wow, people are going to struggle to take him down. Not so much. I think that Yair Rodriguez going forward is still going to be able to get taken down by anybody who has decent takedowns. And yeah, man, good performance by Yair. Not so great performance by Pitbull. Pitbull really needs to rethink his career now. He's 1-3 in his last 4. I know he just signed with the UFC, but he's almost 38 years old. It's like, how much more do you want to do this, buddy? You have 44 professional fights now, and you just got schooled by Yair Rodriguez, who's great, but he's been proven to not be the best. He just got submitted by Brian Ortega and got schooled by Volk. No shame in getting schooled by Volk, but nonetheless, Yair Rodriguez deserves or gets a decision over Patricio Pitbull. No, he does not deserve a championship fight. Yair Rodriguez needs to win 2 more fights before he's talking about a belt. This guy's on a 1-fight win streak. So let's do Yair versus Arnold Allen, Yair versus Diego Lopez at Noche. Why not? Book it. They fought on the same card. Perfect matchmaking. And for Patricio Pitbull, do Patricio Pitbull versus, like, I don't know, Doohoo Choi or something, dude. Give him a fun banging matchup that he can, a fan fun fight. But either way, Yair Rodriguez gets it done. In the second fight on the main card, Bryce Mitchell gets submitted by a ninja choke by John Silva in the second round. I saw this all week. Bryce Mitchell, I think the reason I was so confident in picking John Silva is because John Silva, in my opinion, was way faster than Bryce Mitchell. And I think that was going to be a big factor. If you ever watch Bryce Mitchell's fights, this guy kind of fights like he's underwater, and that's always to his detriment, in my opinion. There's not much you can do about speed, but Bryce Mitchell never really had speed, man, and John Silva was just kind of piecing him up on the feet. Also, can we talk about Bryce Mitchell's gas tank? Where was it in this fight? Bro had no gas tank. He gassed out. After the first round, Bryce Mitchell looked like he was gasping for air. John Silva looked fresh. I think he got to the ground and scrambled with Bryce Mitchell once, but outside of that, it was all on the feet, and Bryce Mitchell was tagging up, or John Silva was tagging up Bryce Mitchell, beating him up, and eventually the fight made its way to the ground. John Silva, first of all, caught him in a few guillotines, right? He knocked down Bryce Mitchell at one point. He caught him in a couple guillotines, but Bryce Mitchell was able to survive, end up on top in some of those exchanges. But in the second round, John Silva gets to the ground with Bryce Mitchell, catches him in a ninja choke, and Bryce Mitchell goes to sleep. And yeah, no one thought that John Silva was going to submit Bryce Mitchell. Let's be real. I didn't think he was going to submit him. I thought he was going to TKO him or KO him. But John Silva proves this guy's elite, man. 5-0 in the UFC. All finishes. Like, you don't see this too often. This guy's something special, man. Don't let the antics fool you with him throwing his hands up and playing patty cake and high five in the middle of the cage. This guy's for real, dude. He's dangerous. And listen, with Ilya out of the division, I don't mind this guy seeing this guy as champion, dude. I think he can beat Volkanovski. I think he can beat Diego Lopes. I think he can beat Mavzar, assuming Mavzar doesn't just hug him to a decision. This guy's so dangerous on the feet, and he proves that he has a ground game. Anybody who can submit Bryce Mitchell has legit BJJ skills. So for John Silva, I'd like to see him against Lerone Murphy again. I think John Silva beats the crap out of Lerone Murphy. And for Bryce Mitchell, do Bryce Mitchell versus like a Doohoo Choi. That would be a good fight. Doohoo Choi made a flat earth joke. Maybe Bryce Mitchell will take it personal, but I kind of feel bad for Bryce Mitchell. But at the same time, it's like, come on, dude. Really, do people really think that Bryce Mitchell was going to beat John Silva? I was saying it all week. John Silva has the momentum. Bryce Mitchell looked like he was going into this fight emotional. His gas tank looks suspect. I don't know, man. John Silva makes it look easy against Bryce Mitchell, in my opinion. Pretty much steamrolls him. So John Silva, let's do him versus Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy has no negotiating power whatsoever. He's boring. He's a decision merchant. He's a 33-year-old prospect. Literally no one cares about Lerone Murphy. He's a Timu Leon Edwards. Let's do him versus John Silva. John Silva will take his undefeated record and en route to a top 5 slot in that featherweight division. And the main card opener, another fight I was wrong on. Nikita Krylov gets absolutely slept by Dominic Reyes. And let me just say, could not happen to a better guy. Whenever Dominic Reyes lost to John Jones, he got absolutely screwed by the judges. He should have won that fight 3 rounds to 2, but the judges screwed him. And after that, he went on a 3-fight losing streak, all knockouts. Like, he got knocked out by Yuri Prohaska, he got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz, and he got knocked out brutally by Brian Spann. And everybody thought that he was going to be done, including myself. I was like, look, man, Dominic Reyes, although he had wins over Dustin Jacoby and against Anthony Smith, his chin wasn't really tested in those fights. Nikita Krylov's a guy that comes all gas in the first round. He's going to be looking to come forward, throw caution to the wind, and knock out Dominic Reyes. But turns out the opposite happened. Nikita Krylov came crashing in. Dominic Reyes caught him with a big right hand going backwards and put him out cold. That was a brutal KO. I was so happy for Dominic Reyes. Like I said, I was picking the fights off for who I thought would win. I have nothing personal against these guys. Dominic Reyes is an amazing guy. As he would say, he's an athlete, and it's so good to see him get a feel-good moment. That's 3 wins in a row, 3 finishes in a row for Dominic Reyes. Dude is back, man. Can you imagine the cinema if freaking Dominic Reyes comes back and wins the title, dude? That would be the most insane comeback. That'd be the most full-circle insane comeback moment in the light heavyweight division's history. Insane by Dominic Reyes. I did not see a world where he puts Nikita Krylov out cold in the first round. Brutal KO by Dominic Reyes. For Dominic Reyes, I think he booked that Jan Blachowicz rematch. Jan Blachowicz coming off that loss, just returned after a two-year layoff due to shoulder surgery, coming off that loss to Carlos Alberg. Give him his rematch against Blachowicz, and if he beats Blachowicz, man, he's looking for a title eliminator or even a title bout, depending on what's going on at the top of that division. Nikita Krylov, tough loss. I think it's his first time being brutally KO'd at light heavyweight. He's going to need some time off, but whenever he comes back, maybe you do Nikita Krylov versus, like, I don't know, Zhang Ming Yang after he beats Anthony Smith, because we already know he's going to beat Anthony Smith. So Nikita Krylov versus Zhang Ming Yang, who's going to smoke Anthony Smith. That's no secret. But yeah, man, tough loss for Krylov. He was out of the cage for 2 years. He returned. I thought he was going to beat Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes proves me wrong, brutally knocks him out. Shout out to Dominic Reyes. Couldn't be happier for him. And then we get on to Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. Disgusting, terrible stoppage. Everybody knows it. Dan Ige, I thought he lost the first 2 rounds. I thought Sean Woodson was narrowly outstriking him on the feet, doing his thing. But in the 3rd round, Dan Ige caught Sean Woodson trying to hold on to a single leg, started hitting him on the side of the head. Sean Woodson is obviously still in the fight. The referee calls it way too early. And yeah, the fight's called off. One of the worst stoppages in recent memory. And you got to feel for Sean Woodson. This guy was 13-1. I think on a 7 or 8 fight win streak, looking to crack into the rankings. But the good old crafty vet, Dan Ige, he always drops 2 decisions and he comes back to get a TKO. Even if it was an early stoppage, Dan Ige always finds a way to get it done. Dan 50K Ige throwing those Hawaiian bombs gets it done, man. But like I said, I did think Sean Woodson was kind of, I wouldn't say piecing him up, but Sean Woodson, in my opinion, narrowly won those first 2 rounds. It was clear to me that he was up 2-0, even though I believe the judges' scorecards had Dan Ige up 2-0, which I was very surprised to hear. That's what I was hearing. Let me know if that's true in the comments. But nonetheless, Dan Ige finishes Sean Woodson. I don't think it was a legit finish. He gets a finish over Sean Woodson in the 3rd round. And yeah, man, Dan Ige is one of the best gatekeepers. It's so hard to beat this guy. If you beat Dan Ige, you're welcome to the top 15. You're welcome. If you don't beat Dan Ige, well, you're just not that level. So yeah, man, Dan 50K Ige gets it done again. Fraud checks another up-and-comer, the GOAT fraud checker of featherweight, Dan Ige. He's like the Christian Rodriguez of featherweight. But either way, let's get on to the last key fight I wanted to talk about on this card. Jim Miller gets outworked and out-hustled by Chase Hooper to a dominant round 3 decision. Chase Hooper, I would just say, beat the brakes and out-grappled Jim Miller. He out-grappled Jim Miller. He outworked Jim Miller. He outstruck Jim Miller. He gassed out Jim Miller. Now, that's not very surprising. You know, Jim Miller is 41 years old. He's been fighting in the UFC since 2008, I believe. He's fought at UFC 100, 200, and 300. So put some respect on Unc Jim Miller's name. He'll see you at the next barbecue. But listen, Mr. Broccoli, Ben Askren's son, whatever you want to call him, Chase Hooper is looking great. This guy might look like the biggest pipsqueak you've ever seen, but he just put on an absolute sleeper and banger of a performance against Jim Miller. And yeah, man, I am happy for Chase Miller. I predicted him to win this fight by a submission, I believe. I thought he was going to be able to submit Jim Miller, as Jim Miller has been susceptible to being submitted by longer guys like Donald Cerrone and like Charles Oliveira back in the day. But Chase Hooper just outworked, outgrappled Jim Miller, even outstruck him, and was able to easily take down Jim Miller. 8 for 14 on takedowns, had a ton of control time. Jim Miller had a couple submission attempts, but Chase Hooper was able to slip out of it. And yeah, he secured a dominant decision. And the Broccoli head rolls on. Ben Askren's son is looking to become a ranked fighter in that lightweight division. He called out a Fares Siam, which I love that matchup. Chase Hooper versus Fares Siam, sign me up. That'd be a great grappling match. And yeah, man, the biggest pipsqueak in the lightweight division is making his way up. A lot of people don't like Chase Hooper because he talks about gooning. And yeah, it's kind of soy, but you know, that's what the kids these days are talking about. And one more fight I wanted to talk about. Let me just say, Darren Elkins needs to retire. This guy literally has cauliflower face. He got rocked by an up kick by Julian Erosa, and that up kick rocked Darren Elkins. He never recovered, and then he got finished. Darren the Damage Elkins is 40 years old. He's taken more. Darren's 40, but he's like 65 in fight years. This guy's literally, ironically enough, has taken so much damage in his career, and I think it's time to hang it up. I think it might be time for Jim Miller to hang it up too. A lot of older fighters are on their way out, guys. This is the new era, but Volkanovski proved that it wasn't time for Diego Lopes yet. I rate this card at 8.5 out of 10. One of the best cards, the best fight companion I've ever had. We had a great time watching the fight. A lot of finishes. It lived up to the hype. By far the best card this year. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you want me to keep doing these recap videos, drop a like, drop a subscription, guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. I appreciate it. I'm out. Deuces.